Alright, so in today's video on Destiny 2, I'm going to rant a little bit because there are a few things within the Season of the Hunt, which I don't think is very good comparing it even to other seasons that may have not even panned out so well, such as like Season of the Worthy back in the summer, which really a lot of people didn't seem to like because of the main core activity being a public event, and it didn't really have that much substance to it. So starting with Shadowkeep and really starting with the seasonal format, we have gotten 4 different activities with the 4 seasons, and they have really been put into 2 groups. A public event style activity like Seraph Towers and Season of Rivals Contact event, which I do not think were as well received as the other ones, which were 6-player activities which had matchmaking, and overall just, I feel, were a lot more fun to do. So now in Beyond Light, Bungie gave us something completely different. It was completely something that we have not done before, and is something most comparable to something like Monster Hunter than something that we've seen in Destiny. This seasonal event is called Wrathborn Hunts, which is essentially you load into a public space. Right now we have Tangled Shore in the Dreaming City, and you kill, or at least almost kill, a big enemy, which is called a Wrathborn enemy. It's almost like a mini boss, and once you are able to kill that, you will track it sort of like Monster Hunter with the you can see on the ground different like marks or footprints where the monster went. And once you follow these tracks, it will eventually lead you to a marker where you will start the mission, where you really just go into a couple rooms, you clear out the enemies, and then you finish off the boss that you were damaging earlier. And then after that, a main boss will spawn. And all you need to do with that boss, the only mechanic, is that you need to kill a smaller enemy, which will drop a pool and give you a buff. Use this buff to take down the shield and deal a lot more damage. And then once you kill the boss, that is the end of the activity. And one of the problems is how easy these are, which I'll get into later, but that is essentially the entire seasonal activity that we have for at least Beyond Light season. So one of the first things you need to know concerning this activity is the actual way you get loot from the activity, because that's kind of the whole point you're even doing the activity in the first place. So you are given what is essentially another Chalice of Opulence from Season of Opulence, where you can slot different AK runes, or in this time they're called mutations, to affect which loot you'll be getting. In the first slot you'll have all your weapons, or at least a couple of them, but I'll get into that later, or armor, or you could even get something that you turn into the Crow, which will allow you to rank him up, and then you can get weapons from doing that, or armor. And you can also get mutation mods, which can help you customize which loot you're going to get. Alright, so now that we've been over what exactly they are, let's get into the core issues with the activity, which is making it probably the weakest out of any of the seasons. Even Vex Offensive had something better. So my first problem is it is way too easy for a seasonal activity. Unless there's going to be a bump in difficulty for maybe some later ones that they might release later. For right now, it's capped at 1220, which is not even close to challenging enough. On screen you can see exactly like one of my runs, what it usually is, and you can usually finish in a minute if you're efficient enough. So one of these problems is that the boss has way too low health, and using something like Lament, which I'm using here, you can basically insta-kill the boss once it spawns in. Another problem that can be pretty easily solved if Bungie just made a few tweaks or changes is the way that you actually charge up this activity. To even do the activity, you need to have a lure charge, which this is the bad thing, you can only get from doing core activities like Gambit Strikes or Crucible. This wouldn't be as bad, except for the fact that in Beyond Light we got one new strike, the other one was replies from Destiny 1, and then 0 Crucible maps and 0 Gambit maps, and yet they took away even more of them than they added, because they added 0. And another really, what I think is an oversight from Bungie is that you don't even get progress from doing things that were introduced in Beyond Light. These activities can include like Empire hunts, or even Master and Legend Lost sectors. You don't get any progress for doing that, only from core activities. I think that if they change this so you could do a wider variety of things to be able to charge it up, or even make it so you don't even need to charge it, or you get a lot more of a charge, because being able to have to charge it just to be able to do the activity is not really a good content loop. Another choice that they made with this activity that I honestly can't understand why they did was not allowing you to choose any weapons or armor that you want. Instead, every single time you get your lure after completing the activity, you are given 4 random options, which include some of the weapons, or armor, or lure mutations, or even recon data turned into the crow. This is completely random, and you have to choose one of the 4. You cannot choose anything you want, which, they had the blueprint, such as like the Chalice of Opulence. That was probably the best way to obtain loot that Destiny has ever had. And even as early as last season with the Umbrella Engrams, they had something similar where you could at least somewhat choose your weapons even if it only narrowed it down to 2. The only improvement that the system had over previous ones is that you can actually exclude perks, but at the beginning of the season that didn't even work correctly. I think this would be a lot better if you could just choose whatever weapons or armor you wanted to, because you're going through all the work of charging it up and completing the actual activity by playing core activities in the first place, and it could be something you don't even want, but you have to do it anyways to get the next 4 random slots. The last issue I'm going to touch on is something that isn't really as important as the core issues that Wrathborn hunts have just at their core, but it's just that the weapons and armor aren't really that special. I mean, armor they can't really do too much besides maybe make exclusive mods that can only drop from the activity to be put on the armor. But as far as weapons go, they don't have any unique roles, basically they're not any different from anything else you can find in the game. For example, if you look at the SMG that drops from these Wrathborn hunts and compare it to something like the Icolos SMG, which you can get from just a world drop just about anywhere, the Icolos SMG can actually spawn Warmind cells, which are some of the most helpful PvE tools that we've ever gotten in the history of the game. Meanwhile, the new SMG from Wrathborn hunts isn't really special in any way, and can't even really get that great of perk combinations. The only weapon that is even somewhat special is the new Wavefront grenade launcher, which is similar to Martyr's Retribution from Season of Dawn. Okay, now that we've talked thoroughly about the problems that's in this activity, let's come up with some of the solutions that Bungie could do to, going forward, and they could even do this season to improve it. So in the future, they could definitely make loot that is special, whether it has different perks or special unique attributes that could even as little as only be used in the activity that they're gotten in. But for what they can do right now is they can make the charges for the lures drop from basically any of the activities in the game as long as they're relevant. Like, I still can't believe that they made it so Empire hunts or Master and Legend Lost sectors can't drop these charges. Along with that, they should just allow you to be able to choose whatever weapons or armor you want. I still think it's kind of ridiculous that it's completely RNG dependent. So that's basically the end of the video. I just wanted to give my take on this season's activity and what they could do to improve it. If you guys have, differing opinions, or you like the video, make sure to comment. I really appreciate you guys leaving comments down there, whether they're constructive or whatever it may be. Anyways, see you guys in the next video. See ya.